Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the September meta tier list of Albion Online, the MMORPG where you are what you wear. We're back, and as usual, we'll go over the current strongest weapons for different types of content, whether it's PvP or PvE. Links are down in the description below. We're going to cover mists and go over the current meta in Hellgates, and as always, ended with a top 10 most versatile weapons list. And without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright, so usually we go over mists and corrupteds, but I think moving forward, due to how few people actually play corrupted dungeons, I think I'll just focus on mists, as that is clearly the more popular game mode. If you're one of the 5 or 6 people who still play corrupteds though, then I am sorry. I will try to keep the table updated somewhat regularly still, even if I don't put it in the video. Anyway, so on to mists. I consulted a few of the top mists players, and this is essentially an average of what they said the meta is like. Bloodletter will remain as the best Stalker Jacket abuser for the time being, but we will see how that works out since Stalker Jacket is getting nerfed to 40 seconds on the NDA, so we'll see. A newcomer in the meta is the Infinity Blade, which I didn't expect to see rated so highly. And the Daybreaker as well seems to be very strong if used correctly, and it makes sense. Otherwise we still have the same usual strong weapons, carving, dual swords, both still very viable. Ava Gloves has the burst and kite playstyle with strong mobility as well. Double bladed is not bad, but as you guys can see, it dropped quite a bunch since the nerfs. But the thing is, you can still play it with high IP and awakened weapon, obviously. Essentially just gank people, but you will struggle in real fights against people who are also high IP, so just keep that in mind. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting, we see on the NDA, a bunch of spells will not be reflectable anymore, and Bow of Baron is one of them, but also a lot of the fire dots will not be reflectable anymore. So for spear players who rely on reflects against fire staffs, you won't be able to do that in the future. Obviously, this is an indirect nerf to Infernal Shield and Hunterhood. Now, I think it's a little weird if you make too many weapons non-reflectable, but hey, I'm not in charge of the balancing. Either way, this is pretty much what you can expect to see if you're playing Mists nowadays. I know everyone has their own opinions on certain weapons. People always reply with, oh, it's a skill issue, whatever, matchups, blah, 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 if you say their weapon is bad. But again, I think this list is pretty accurate based off of what people have told me and based off of the leaderboards. And onto the 2v2 Hellgates, we are finally done with the Imp meta. Everyone rejoice, you can play other weapons now. And that's the biggest change, to be honest. The Hellspawn staff drops all the way to C tier into the trash can. Demonic is back as the king of the meta now. Obviously, Imp overtook it for a while, but Demonic was the best for a long time until Imp came along. And now Imp is gone, so Demonic reclaims the spot yet again. Now, I do have to say that Great Fire is very competitive and sees a lot of play, so it's pretty close as to which one is better. There's a bunch of viable stuff to play, even Daybreaker in high B tier or low A tier, depends how you look at it, and some people are even playing Blazing Staff, and guys, it's with a healer. It's not even a one-shot setup, and no, I'm not trolling. I thought it was troll at first as well, but High Infamy shows us that the top players are playing it, and they're actually playing it with cast speed, passive, and omelet. And yeah, I really thought it was a joke, but top Infamy players are using it. I personally feel like it's just a meme and Great Fire is better, but we'll see. Death Givers is also surprisingly strong at the moment with the new Tenacity Shoes change. Miguel reached 400k infamy with it on the East server, for example. He literally just uploaded a banger video showcasing and explaining the build, so definitely check that out, link in the description below. But yeah, as I said earlier, Great Fire sees a lot more play now, partially because Imp is trash, but also because of the small buff it got in patch 1 a few weeks ago. The extra damage really adds up over the span of an extended fight where you can get numerous ease off, especially if you hit it on both enemies. One thing to notice is that the Blazing SOB comp is stronger because of the meta changes. A lot of healers are opting to play Mistwalker Shoes, which is really good by the way, over Mercenary Shoes, which makes that matchup slightly worse. And while on the topic of burst comps and fire, Legal uploaded a banger as well, showcasing Tomb Hammer plus Great Fire, which is a viable comp by the way, or at least as viable as a non-healer comp, you know, can be. So you have those two to choose from pretty much if you want to play a non-healer comp. The Tomb Hammer health cut buff definitely helped, but overall the meta hasn't settled quite yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing how the meta develops over the next few weeks. As for 5v5 Hellgates, we are still in a shapeshifter meta. The small nerf to Ent didn't quite push it out, and I think the main reason for that is still the very strong synergy, being able to run Graveguard Helmet, which makes your sustain very, very strong. Now, most teams have opted for Lightcaller as the main range DPS, which isn't surprising. The damage output this thing has is just insane, but in my opinion, the main thing is that it's hard to dive because you can't just swap to human form and now boom, you're not a Clothy anymore. A dive is actually playable at the moment. The exact setup varies. I think people are still experimenting, but I think this is probably the most common setup with Daybreaker and Infernal Scythe. And I mean, playstyle is dive. You just run in, kill squishy targets. Yeah. If you're playing front to back and mainly fighting against these dive comps, then I recommend running Heavy Mace instead of the Great Hammer. But Hammer is way better into the mirror matchup, so you have to make the choice accordingly depending on which teams are inside. Great Hammer is a lot better if the enemy has an Eagle. That is 100% a fact. As for one shot, the double Rift setup drops a bit, and part of it is the nerf, but it also doesn't help that many teams run Lightcaller in front to back nowadays, which if they stay in human form means you don't have many targets to pick and engage on as you want to aim for Clothies. Now with the glove variant in A tier, I think it's stronger because it's easier to kill the frontliners. The issue with the Riftglaive one shot is that it's almost impossible to kill anything that's not a Clothy because we only deal physical damage and nobody runs leather in fives. It's either cloth or plate pretty much. So yeah, and that's pretty much the 5v5 meta at the moment. The 10v10 Hellgate meta was stale for a while, but we are finally starting to see some more innovation, let's put it like that. A lot of teams are experimenting with another range DPS instead of the Ent. And while Ent is still very viable, I think there might be better options. For example, my team, we're playing Double Eagle, have seen great success with it. There's a Russian team which plays Evensong with Cloth, Frazzle and W as a ranged DPS, and that seems not bad as well. But yeah, everything else is pretty much set in stone. Just that last range DPS spot seems to be pretty flexible at the moment. There is some sort of dive you can play. I'm not sure what the best melee is. Daybreaker is obviously solid though. Astral is played instead of the more defensive GA. You play Astral with Tenacity Jacket, still on Cleanse and Shield though. But yeah, definitely makes the comp more glass cannon. But if you can get some sort of pressure, you can make the enemy backline fold for sure. Now, one shot is trash. I mean, not much else to say really. But one thing I would talk about though real quick is the up and coming nerfs to Hallowfall, and in my opinion it's not necessarily that a Hallowfall is too strong. Well, maybe in the past it was, but now it's definitely not. The issue is that the other holy staffs are either for like PV 2v2s or they just suck. We do see a crazy redemption change making the heals AoE, which I think might shake up the healing meta. We might see something else than Hallowfall, but it's hard to tell until we see the changes go live and test it for sure. I do not think that I could play a different Holy Staff in my lifetime for small scale content. After Hallowfall dominating for like what, 3 years, we will finally see some variety perhaps. And while on the topic of healing, obviously One-Handed Nature might finally replace Blight for small scale with these changes. Probably for 5v5s we'll see One-Handed Nature, but for 10v10s we might still see Blight, but I actually think Wild Staff will not be too bad after this change, so we'll see. Now let's quickly go over the top 10 most versatile weapons in Albion Online. At the moment we see Lightcaller claiming the #1 spot over Hallowfall, and that is very difficult to do. We will see if the Lightcaller and Hallowfall nerfs will be enough to dethrone either or both of these. Now the rest is the same as usual, to be honest, just weapons that are versatile and strong. No matter the activity pretty much, whether it's PvE, Mists or Hellgates, playing these weapons you will not be giga trolling. If you are interested, the full tier list is in the description below. I will try my best to add the crystal weapons for the next patch as well. I will perhaps rework the tier list altogether, remove some of the categories. There is some overlap with some of these, for example the group dungeon one. Do we really need that category? I'm not sure. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What kind of categories you think should be there or shouldn't be there. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always, if you have feedback on any of the ratings, feel free to reach out. I could very well be wrong about any of the things I've said in the video, so you can join the Discord, link in the description below if you have any feedback. And yeah, that's all I had to say. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe for more content, and I hope you have a good one.